and welcome to another exhilarating screen capture of Mind Edge by yours truly, Ken Lambert. In Module 2 for English 122, it transitions from last week with a focus on a surface or literal reading, and it moves towards a more active reading, where you dig deeper and deeper and deeper. Like we last week when we did the song lyric activity, that's what they want you to do. They want you to really dig into the material. Active reading includes understanding of context, purpose, audience. Those are key. Context is the time or situation, or what's going on in somebody's life when something is written, produced, made. Purpose, why, is important. And audience, their intended audience is critical, because if their intended audience is second graders versus graduate students, whether or not they succeed at their goal, it really hinges a lot on that. So those three elements are very crucial. So you always want to try to learn as much as you can about all of those three whenever you're engaged in reading. Now, just a little side note. There are some schools of literary criticism that would say that doesn't matter, but just we're not going to talk about those for right now. Just know they exist. Um, Anyways, so those three things are big, along with writing style, word choice, and tone. Writing style, if you don't know what writing style is, if you've ever read two books by two different authors and you think about them, it'll they have different styles, and so just kind of like how Pink and Drake aren't the same artist. They have different styles. Writing authors have different styles. Word choice, also called diction, the words that they choose to use, and then tone. Tone is most commonly defined as the author's attitude towards subject or audience. So you're going to apply this new knowledge by analyzing a sample reading in Chapter 2, or Module 2. And all right, reading. How do we analyze? So as you read through here, you'll see it'll go into detail about what I'm gonna say, but they highlight two words here: inferential, which they define as referring to the process of drawing a conclusion about something from what is already known. You've heard infer, I'm sure, inferential. And so inferential is just the adjectival version of infer. And active reading strategies such as identifying the main claim and major points, asking questions of the author, underlining evidence, and identifying appeals that help the reader stay engaged in the reading and therefore improve comprehension and retention. That's the big thing with active reading. A lot of people, a lot of students and people in general shy away from active reading because they think, oh, it's going to take longer to read this if I actively read it. Yes, that's true, but you get so much more out of it, and the enjoyment level goes up, which it seems kind of counterintuitive if people, especially if they're reluctant readers. But the more you engage with a text, the more you wrestle with it, the more you're going to get out of it as far as understanding and enjoyment. So passive reading is when we let the words wash over us. Active reading, we're engaging them. We're asking, why did the author end this sentence with that word, this chapter on that note? We're not just accepting that things are. And so it highlights some active reading strategies, engaging in pre-reading inquiry. That's where you're asking yourself about context, audience, a purpose. Take notes as you read is another active reading strategy. Certainly, that's most every student's experienced that. And if you click down on any of these, you'll notice that it gives a more, it elaborates on each of these. Making connections, that's a great way to engage a text. Summarizing the text. So if you, after reading, put what you just read into your own words, that'll help it stick in your brain, help it stay with you. Applying what you've learned, that is a crucial step for really deep, profound understanding. Because if you can apply what you have learned from a text, then you have a mastery of what you have read. Well, as long as you apply it correctly, of course. The next few pages in this module will review some of the key areas to focus on while engaging in active reading. So as we look at page 3 of MindEdge, okay, good. Context, purpose, and audience. I hit upon these. This page elaborates on them, what is meant by each of these terms. And this idea of looking at certain elements, it goes all the way back to ancient Greece. You might have heard the term the rhetorical triangle or the Aristotelian triangle. That dates back to Aristotle, and it's for that one you look at subject, audience, and oh my gosh, why am I forgetting the last S? Subject, audience. Oh no, subject, audience, purpose. I believe I'm correct. Anyways, so here again, it's just going to elaborate more on that. And there's an ungraded activity here. Now, the thing with the ungraded activities, they're truly ungraded, but they'll often refer back to these in the graded activities. So it's a good idea to try your hand at them. They won't take super long, and they will help prepare you for the graded material. So I would encourage you to do them. So the adaptive learning segment, the following adaptive learning segment is optional and ungraded. And it's an enrichment activity. And so answer the diagnostic questions below to test your knowledge on the topic. So this is going to give you a really, this is going to give you a really good idea of how much mastery you have over the material. And so again, I would encourage you to do it. If you try to leave a page and you haven't done one of the tasks on the page, it'll ask you if you really want to leave. I do, because I'm not going to do that right now. All right. So on this page, it goes into those some of the other terms I had talked about earlier, and so it defines style, diction, tone for you. It also talks about different genres of writing, like expository writing. What is that all about? So you can read those, and it'll help make it more concrete what these terms are. If my quick explanation didn't. So right here on page 4, you will find that. Now, on each of the definitions, it's not just going to define it. It's going to tell you, it's going to go into different writing styles. Even using some formatting is a different style. I've asked you guys if you are more inclined to use APA or MLA. That's a style. It's a formatting style. And then there's examples of writing styles. So if you are fuzzy at all on any of these, look through each of the tabs, and if you still have questions, by all means ask me. But I love that they have the 3 different tabs here, because it really helps to very clearly paint a picture of what each of these terms means. And then it goes into essay writing, expository or narrative writing. We expect some somewhat more formality. And that's very true. The paper that you're going to write for this class, it's going to be more formal. So read through here and find out what a more formal style should have as some of the hallmarks. And there's argumentative writing. You're going to engage in argumentative writing in ENG 123. But somewhat you're going to do that with this paper, because the paper for this class it asks you whether you agree or don't, or how well you think the author of the piece that you're reading, how effective was their argument, how well did they argue for their point. All right, so diction, like I said, is word, well, they called it word choice earlier. Here they're using the more academic word. Diction means word choice. And tone, so like I said, it's best defined as a reflection of the author's attitude toward his or her subject. It's more common to think about it as far as attitude towards subject, but it broader is towards subject or subject or audience. Oh, I was wrong about the Aristotelian triangle. If you wrote down what I said, it's speaker, subject, audience. Speaker, subject, audience. You don't need it for this class. I was just referring back to it to talk about how far back a lot of this stuff goes that we still consider today. It has its roots way back in ancient Greece and perhaps beyond. Um, all right, so then there's an adaptive learning, optional and graded. Again, I encourage you to look at it because this is going to let you know, again, how much mastery you have. So again, it's going to ask me if I want to stay or leave. I want to leave because I'm not going to take that assessment right now. Or the ungraded activity. I'm not going to do that. So now we have a activity that is graded, the guided analysis. So you're going to engage in pre-reading inquiry, take notes as you read, make connections, summarize the text, apply what you've learned. So you're going to read this article called Turning Off, Dining In. I find the article very interesting. I'm actually glad that they used this one. There was one that they had used in the past that students didn't care for as much, but I think this piece is enjoyable. Hopefully you'll like it. So, pre-reading inquiry, you want to be thinking about you want to think about questions you might have, thoughts you might have about the title, things that you could ask of the text or infer or dig into before reading. And then you would read and you would engage in the other bullet points like taking notes and whatnot. At the end of this is the author's works cited page. You'll notice that it's hanging indent, meaning the first line isn't indented, each additional line is. When you write your paper, you're going to use hanging indent as well. Now, guided analysis questions. So you've read it, you've engaged in active reading, then you respond to these questions. So what is the context of turning off, dining in? And you'll go through the questions and respond to them. They have a sample analysis afterwards, which is very helpful, I think. And you can click on the highlighted portion and you can see additional information that they provide. All right, and so going to the next page. Journal, importance of analysis. This too is graded. So this is the second deliverable that you have for this week. So the journal activity is private between you and the instructor and me. So this, unlike the discussion forums where everybody can see what you posted, journals nobody else can see. Just I can see, you can see. So this week you've learned about active reading and analysis by looking more closely at a selected reading. In doing so, you uncovered ideas in the Turning Off Dining In article that may have been difficult to identify during your literal reading of the text. To prepare for this assignment, please pre-read your selected article and your notes from Module 1. Then, using a Word document, answer the following questions. Discuss the context of your selected article, the author's purpose, and the style and the tone. What have you learned from your early analysis? 2. How will a closer analysis of the author's claim and structure of the writing help you to learn more about the selected reading? And 3. Now that you've discussed the author's purpose for writing the selected reading, do you think the author's writing is effective in achieving their purpose? What led you to this conclusion? You'll notice these questions, they are essentially having you go through a short process with this article that you're going to be going through with your article for the paper that you're writing. So well, actually, they're pointing out that what they asked you to do with the article is what they're now asking you to do with your article. I'm sorry. So, because it's discussed the context of your selected article. So that doesn't. We're not talking about turning off, dining in. We're talking about either mother tongue, some lessons from the assembly line, or me talk pretty one day. This right here, combined with your reading notes and next module writing notes, that all this stuff is working towards helping you create your paper. So pay attention to the different steps they have you go through, because if you find them super helpful, remember that. So when you are writing a paper for another class, you can think back to these steps and implement them. And then it gives you the guidelines right here. There's a rubric that follows. The rubric is exactly what I'm going to use to grade you, so be familiar with it because if you want to get exemplary, you have to hit these elements here. That's it for Module 2, and I will talk to you guys later on this evening. Have a good one.